Okay, so for this one, I again recommend using a notebook. I tried doing it from memory, but I kind of would mess up all the time. So for this lesson, I'm going to be keeping this molecule up here like this and all the extra stuff on the bottom, just so it's a little more organized. So my benzene rings, or my rings are going to be on either side, and then of course my nitrogen's in the middle with this down here. So to get started, this is the third intermediate, so I'm going to look for something that's out of place. I see this lone pair here. So for most of these, you're going to use two moves. So I'm going to go ahead and release these electrons back to oxygen from this double bond. And then I'm going to grab this lone pair and attach it to the carbon. Hit arrange. So in the end, what we have, the oxygen has two lone pairs, our oxygen over here has three, and then our nitrogen still has the two hydrogens that will then in the next one lose one hydrogen. And then I didn't touch anything up here yet for the third intermediate. This one can be confusing, sorry, but I think most of them just have two moves. If you're doing more than that, it might be wrong. The final products for sure has, I believe, more than two moves. If it only has two, then I'm doing extra work. But so for the most part, remember I'm keeping this up here. We're going to be adding a double bond. Okay, so first, for the final product, we're going to put a double bond here from the carbon to the oxygen. I'm going to go ahead and release these electrons back to nitrogen. And I want both sides, when looking down the middle, to be exactly the same. So I see this nitrogen has a hydrogen and a lone pair, but this one only has two lone pairs. So to make it exactly like this one, I'm going to go ahead and take this hydrogen from the oxygen and hit arrange. So I wasn't counting how many moves that was, but the end product for, okay, sorry, I'm not done. Okay, so I'm done with this molecule, so everything looks exactly the same. If you cut it down the middle, it's the same either way. The nitrogen has a lone pair and a hydrogen on both sides, and our carbon is double bonded to the oxygen that has four. So this is when we want to create a double bond here from this nitrogen. So I'll go ahead and zoom in since we're done with the top molecule. Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to take this bond over here and attach it to the oxygen. Hit arrange. And the end product here is an oxygen with 5 bonds. So this one's going to look a little crazy, this one's going to look normal, and then this nitrogen is only going to have 3 bonds, one being with hydrogen. So I hope I explained that well. This is the end product, and I'll roll it around so you can see the back and see those lone pairs. So this is the craziest one, the final product. It has a lot of moves, and you're working with the two molecules separately. Okay, the second intermediate is when we're going to connect these two molecules. So to do that, I'm going to release one of these bonds. And I'll go ahead and release the one that has a hydrogen. That's how I've been doing it. I haven't tried it with doing this one. And then I'm going to attach. I'm not going to use a double bonded oxygen. I'm going to use one of these 3 lone pairs. So I'll just get this one and attach it to that carbon so that the carbon now has 4 bonds. And I believe that was 2 moves total. We're not going to touch this molecule for the second intermediate, and we're going to leave it as is. So of course these aren't going to match up yet being mirrored. The only time that they're mirrored is, I believe, the final product. I don't think they're mirrored in any other one. Okay, again, I'm gonna put my rings on top so I have a little more organization going on. So I have one ring on my left, one ring on my right, and then my 2 nitrogens with the extra molecule on the bottom. So we see that the molecule that was here on the side is now attached. And so for this one, we're gonna go ahead. Let's see, I'm referring to my notes because sometimes it can be confusing. Okay, so with this oxygen here, with the 3 lone pairs, it needs a hydrogen. So we're gonna go ahead and take that from nitrogen and release those electrons back to nitrogen. So that's 2 moves total. I'm gonna hit arrange. And I don't think that I attached it the right way. Okay. So the electrons are gonna go back to nitrogen. So that's 2 moves total. I'll go ahead and roll it around. So we still have this double bond. And they're not mirrored. We only have 1 lone pair on the nitrogen, 1 lone pair and a hydrogen on this nitrogen. And then just make sure that you get the right oxygen. It's the one with 3 lone pairs that we're going to be putting that hydrogen on. And then now that leaves the nitrogen with just a lone pair and a hydrogen. So that was 2 moves total. Okay, so the first intermediate. Okay, again, I'm gonna move this up. Okay, so I can see it better. I'm just gonna be releasing one of these bonds. And I'm gonna go ahead and grab this hydrogen and release these electrons back to oxygen. And then I believe we can release this bond. I'm gonna leave it because I want it to be 2 moves, so I'm gonna see if that works. We're gonna put 0 because we don't have any double bonds within the rings. Okay, so yeah, I think you can leave this. I try to make it only 2 moves total to have some like uniformity within the lesson. But if you want to do 3 moves, I'm pretty sure you can release this back to oxygen and it'll still be right. Okay, I'm going to put the rings on the top with the nitrogen side by side. And I'm going to zoom in a bit. So for this one, we're actually detaching this molecule. So to do that, I'm going to bring these electrons back to oxygen. And let me roll it around a little bit or move it. Okay, and then since this carbon only has 3 bonds, I'll want to go ahead and do a double bond so that it has the 4. And that'll make up the second move. And I'm not going to use the oxygen, I'm going to go ahead and use the nitrogen. Hit arrange. Okay, so that was just 2 moves total. Now we have our 2 separate molecules that we saw in the final product. So yeah, these aren't mirrored yet. This is still unbonded, well, double bonded, I guess. And then we only have 2 double bonds between nitrogen and carbon on each molecule. This oxygen has 2 lone pairs and a hydrogen. and this nitrogen has 3 bonds, one with a hydrogen, and then the double bond in this one. So that should be it, hopefully. We're gonna put 0 again. Okay. Yeah, I believe that's it. I really recommend putting in a notebook. Again, I tried doing it like by memory and stuff. It was pretty hard. But yeah, good luck.